Greeting to all the students. Welcome to Global Online. Here we are back with our NTA UGC NET preparation for 2023 batch, that is paper 1, wherein your exams have started and we have decided to help you out with the last minute revision videos. So this is day 2. Yesterday also we have uploaded the rapid revision 60 minutes 1 unit video, that is for teaching aptitude. Today we are going to do the topic that is communication, which is taken by me, that is Dr. Triptii. Now, before we go ahead with the start of the topic, let's quickly have a look at what this Global Online has to offer you for your study material for paper 1 as well as paper 2. So this is basically the study material for paper 2 for the subjects which are listed on the screen. You can see the subjects on the screen. The study material will be consisting of MCQ questions as well as notes. Okay. Now, this particular study material will be available to you on the given contact numbers. So you can ping on these numbers and you can get the study material. Actually, the fee cost is 1600, but we are giving a 20% off. So you can get this at the cost of 1280. If you're looking something for paper 1 as a quick revision, yes, we do have paper 1 quick revision PDF, which consists of 2000 plus MCQs, updated MCQs, current affairs, short notes, previous year question papers, and most repeated questions for a fee cost of rupees 699 for the same. In order to avail the same, you can get in touch with us on the given WhatsApp numbers, where you can just get the copy for your reference. So this is what we have. Now, yes, let's start with the revision. So let's understand quickly what is the syllabus about. So syllabus is on the topic communication. Though the syllabus looks very crisp, small, and minute, but it has really lot of weightage. So just have a little bit of importance to what the syllabus is, and then we will proceed. Okay. Now, where we have first part is communication, that is meaning, types, and characteristics. Effective communication in the form of verbal, non-verbal, intercultural and group communication, classroom communications, barriers to effective communication, mass media, and society. This is what we have. But yes, it looks very simple, but there are a lot of inner topics or subtopics which we have taken. So let's study those all right now. Okay, so let's start now. So yes, first of all, the small questions can come out of the topic, that is communication is derived from what? So yes, communication is derived from the Latin word communicare, which means to share or to make common. So basically, it is nothing but sending and receiving the information, which is done by the sender. Okay, the sender is the one who encodes the message, that is the message which has to be transferred, which is received by the receiver. The receiver decodes the message. Encoding, decoding, separate slide also I have made, so that many questions are there seen on encoding, decoding, so you'll be able to remember that. Yes, language involves signs and symbols. Effective communication is something where the understanding has to be, important. It the speaker, the sender, I mean to say, the one who sends the speaks about the message, should make sure that the message is understood, or it should be in such a way that it is intended that the receiver or the audiences understands the message. Now, encoding and decoding first we will do, and then we'll come to the cycle. So encoding is nothing but the process of turning thoughts into communication. The medium can be anything. It can be a phone call, an email, a text message, or face-to-face meeting, or other communications tool. The encoder should also take into account the noise as one of the factor, which can lead to a distraction, or which can have an influence. Decoding is the process of turning communication into thoughts. Okay. Yes, communication cycle. You do not have a question directly on communication cycle, but yeah, you may get a question on components. So sender, okay, we have that is the context. Okay, the sender, the encoding. Just now I taught you what is encoding. Message, channel, decoded, a receiver, okay, a feedback, which completes the entire communication cycle. And yes, we cannot ignore the distraction or the disturbance in the form of noise. But all these components put togetherly forms what? Forms a communication cycle. And without the feedback, the cycle is not completed. Then going ahead, we have 7 C's of communication. Now, yes, many a time students ignore this, a very simple topic. They do not revise, the revision is not done, and then they have a unclarity on the topic. But definitely the question comes, and it is seen in any form of the question, either the statement question or a code question. So please have 2 minutes attention and understand what are the 7 C's or principles of communication, which talks about completeness, that is all the facts required for learning; concreteness, that is definite or specific learning; courtesy, that is in the form of commitment and affection; correctness, in the form of addressing the audiences appropriately; clarity, in the form of specific purpose of the message; consideration, to receive the interest of the receiver, to consider, sorry, the interest of the receiver; or conciseness, to be up to the point, okay, to put least possible words and make the message, or make sure that the message is up to the point. Now, along with along with 7 C's, we also have 4 S's of communication, that is in the form of the shortness of a message, the strength of a message, the sincerity of the message, and the simplicity of a message. This all combines together to form what? The 4 S of effective communication. So shortness, that is conciseness; strength, it means it has to be concrete; sincerity, it means it has to be, correct, appropriate; simplicity, it means the use of simple terms in order to understand the message. Now, coming to the skills, yes, listening, speaking, reading, writing are the important skills of communication. So when we talk about listening, it helps to facilitate the skills like the language, spoken language, the sounds of the language, or it interprets the message. Speaking talks about awareness of the grammar, awareness of cultural feature, awareness what and when and how to speak with the correct pronunciation is, yes, is important. Reading indicates the gateway of knowledge, looking at the printed symbols, translating them into appropriate components. Writing, that is the ability of using words, grammar, as well as the content. So these skills are very important, which will strengthen the communication of a person, that is not only the communication of a teacher, but also from the student's perspective, teaching learning perspective, or teaching a student and the facilitator's perspective. Okay. Now, coming to the characteristics of effective communication, yes, you may get a question which is a combination of your principles. So it's clear message, that is clarity; correct message, that is correctness; complete message, it means a complete information; precise, it means concise, up to the point; reliability, it means where you can relate the message with; consideration of the recipient, that is the interest; and sender's courtesy, that is also in the form of empathy, that is the understanding level of the sender towards the receiver. Okay. Then yes, levels, a very important topic where the question comes in any form. In fact, these questions are seen in the form of examples. So intrapersonal, interpersonal, group communication, public communication, mass communication. So intrapersonal, it means when you're speaking to yourself, you're speaking or communicating within yourself, to oneself, in order to take a decision, to introspect yourself, to analyze the situation, or to make oneself comfortable. Like for example, there was one of the previous year question, okay, praying in silence. Praying in silence is actually considered as interpersonal communication. Praying in silence, or you can has the twist in the word or the sentence will be praying to God. So you have an involvement of a God as a second party and you as a first party. So that becomes interpersonal communication. So you have to be very careful what your question is talking about. See, it all UGC NTA examinations is all about concept clearance and how do you read and interpret the question. That is all about selecting the answers for the question. Interpersonal communication. So interpersonal communication basically talks about what a communication which takes place between the parties with a proper articulation of the message. So type of powers classroom communication, what powers the teacher has, or what powers must be can be seen. So expert power, subject expert, you can say referent power. Now please remember, this classroom communication consists of what? These all types of powers in order to have a communication, or in order to ensure that the communication takes place. So let's see all of these powers one by one. So when I talk about expert power, okay, so expert power talks about expertise with reference to knowledge, with reference to the skills, which is definitely seen in should be present in the teacher. When I talk about referent power, so referent power, it means as a leader, okay, uh, no matter what type, what person as in personality you are, referent power is one of the most valuable kind of power, which helps in order to build the relationship. So that is whatever kind of a personality a teacher is, but unless and until the teacher does not have a referent power, it will difficult for a teacher to build a bonding with the student. Information power, that is the sharing of information or in the form of knowledge, experience. Legitimate power, so when we talk about legitimate power, it is, it is a position, the power which is, which is basically based on what position. Then we have coercive power. It is basically a power which is based on, certain reinforcement. Now, when I say reinforcement, if it is the outcome is positive, the reinforcement will be positive in the form of reward, but it is negative, it will be in the form of punishment. Okay. Then next we have is a difference between intra and interpersonal communication. So when I say intra, it means, as I said, within. Okay, it is a form of sensing, thinking, perception. Okay, it is, communication, you're talking to yourself. It does not require any media and channel. It goes beyond it. Sorry, it does not goes beyond the person's mind. It keeps on revolving, rotating there itself in the mind, and it is invisible. You cannot, no, not necessarily the person has to open his mouth and speak. He can, just by his thought process, or just without any murmuring or lip sync, he can just keep talking to himself. Whereas on the other hand, interpersonal power, which is based on, ideas, information, and opinions, it is based on the form of value exchange and sharing of information. Two persons, yes, are involved. Okay, it can be in the form of verbal or non-verbal communication. It goes beyond one's mind to another, that is two parties, and it's, yes, it is visible. We can see people talking to, interacting with each other, or talking to each other. Then we have the difference between formal and informal communication. Formal, that is a business communication. Informal is a communication which takes place in any situation, random situation, but does not require a formal atmosphere. Okay, so formal is deliberately structured. It is systematically when planned, organized. It is through the chain of command. Yes, it is rigid. It is an official channel. It is in order to achieve the objectives of the business. It is time taking, yes, accurate and legal. It is oral and written and can be traced. Okay, you can have you can have a connectivity of this communication. Informal communication, which is very spontaneous, or it is now let's start with informal communication, the one which is spontaneous and unstructured. And yes, it is not planned. As I said, it is instant. It is not in a systematic way, or it is unorganized. Official channels are not prescribed. It is flexible. It is unofficial mode of communication. It just is to it is just to satisfy the personal needs, which is faster in speed. It is often distorted. Yes, in the form of rumors and gossip. It is more, active. Then we have, it is usually oral and there is no record for that, and hence it cannot be traced. Next we have is your, yes, a group communication. So group communication that happens between 3 or more members. It can be formal or informal. Now here sometimes students have a confusion if they get a organizational communication. Organizational communication is basically a communication which is, between or within the organization. So that is a part of what? It is again a part of group communication, which is used to discuss and finalize an outcome and share the objectives. Then we have next, so organizational communication is nothing but a group communication. Then we have public communication, that is broadcasting a message to a selective audiences, which is to discuss, with an intention to share with an intention of what exactly message you want to convey, or you want a large audience within, within a faster reach. So yes, you can use public communication. And finally, we have the mass communication, where you have internet, radio, in the form of internet, radio, television, magazines, newspaper. Yes, to address a large amount of communication with no personal connect, which in public communication, yes, you have a presence of what? You have a presence of personal connect. Next, we have as types of communication. On for this also, we can see the answers in the questions in the form of examples only. So horizontal communication is a communication which is at the same, which is at par. It means a faculty of commerce talking to other faculty of commerce, or maybe the faculty of science. So if it is assistant professor talking to assistant professor of a science department, or maybe the arts department, so it is at par. Okay, manager of sales talking to manager of HR, or maybe, a different designations, but, the same designations interacting with each other can be a part of horizontal communication. Vertical communication, that is consisting of what? It is either in the form of upward communication or downward communication, and horizontal is nothing but cross. Okay, in the form of cross, in the sense interdepartmental. So like department of sales communicating with the department of marketing, or HR or finance or IT or operations. Okay. Yes. Then we have next is, now, yes, there was one specific question in one of the specific year with the levels. So here I have, classified the levels of communication, level A, B, C, D. So A talks about semantic noise, which result into ambiguity. B talks about the source noise. I'm taking it in the sequence. B talks about the source noise, maybe the mumbling, stammering, or lip sync can be a reason for that. C talks about channel noise, that is a technical error, you can say. And D talks about the psychological noise, that is the preconceived notions about, about a certain communication, or a message. So you have to, understand the levels. They may give you the examples and they will tell you to identify the levels. Next, we have is a connotation and denotation term. For this also, you definitely get the questions. So a connotation is nothing but, feelings, whereas denotation is, exact meaning. That is, denotation is nothing but a definition meaning. So color blue is indicated as a color only, but if you talk it in the cultural perspective, it can be taken as a feeling of sad. Okay. So connotation refers to the personal or cultural meaning to a message, whereas denotation talks about what? It talks about a dictionary meaning to a message. Connotation can be classified as positive or it can be negative. Like, for example, color red is in indicating love as well as danger also. Denotation is not classified with positive or negative. So they may give you the question, like, they will give you the question in the form of either a negative meaning or a positive meaning, and you have to understand whether it is a connotative, a positive message, or a negative message. Connotation can change according to the culture and personal experiences, whereas denotation is same regardless what the culture says or what is the personal experience. Okay. Then we have next, certain words were there in the papers. Those words I have taken down in the form of theory, so that you remember it when you definitely do what you do your previous year questions. Okay, so scaffolding, it's nothing but the activities that provided by the educator or more competent peer to support the students, who are through the throughout the zone of proximal development. Now, what is this proximal development? I think, yes, I have not taken it over here. So diagrammatically, I will show you. So proximal development is nothing but, learners learn something on their own. Teachers teach something to the learners, okay, or learners learn something on their own, something with the help of teachers, okay, that is with the help of teachers, but there are some gray areas where the learner need help, okay. So that help can be either taken with the peers or it can be taken with the teachers, and that is nothing but the zone of proximal development. So it is nothing but, scaffolding, the teachers as well as the peers provide a scaffolding to the learner, and the scaffolding is basically taken out when, learner is on his own. Now, what do you mean by that? So, like, for example, if you see a construction of a building, okay, and just in order to provide the support, the scaffolding is built up with the help of bamboo sticks. And once the I mean to say the outer side or may the main structure of the building stands strong, the scaffolding has been taken out. Same way, in order to support, okay, that is, I have written the meaning also over here. Support is tapered off, withdrawn when it becomes unnecessary, when the child knows that, okay, when the child is on his own, definitely that scaffolding is removed up, okay, and the student will be able to take himself, ahead. So I have given here what is the zone of proximal development. It is nothing but a mechanism, support mechanism, which is basically, to support the student, not only with his help of teachers, but also with the help of his peers. Okay. And how scaffolding is related to zone of proximal development, that I have shown you with the help of example also. Then types of communication in the form of verbal communication, examples are there. So this type of question comes with examples, face to face, over the phone or the Skype or a Zoom, or chatting with the friends or family members. Non-verbal communication which happens with the help of eye contact, body language, facial expressions, tone of the voice, or a posture or a gesture. Written communication is in the form of email, is the form of a report writing, bulletin, a letter, a manual, or a telegram. Listening communication is in the form of active listening. We have done listening as one of the important skills. And visual communication with the help of the image or, infographic, a video, or a visual presentation. Now, when we talk about your verbal and non-verbal communication, so yes, verbal communication plays a more important, is important, it's considered. But if you see weightage wise, non-verbal communication plays an important role because it covers 65% of, of the message is covered with the help of what? With the help of non-verbal communication. So that is what we have, we have understood with the help of the weightage, okay? Weightage over here. Then we have the statement is proved with one of the evidence by Dr. Albert, where 55% consist of body language, 38% of person consist of only voice and tone, 7% consist only of spoken words. Okay. So it is concluded that the tone of voice is stronger indicator of emotion than the actual meaning of the word itself. So tone, that is your body language, okay, plays really an important role rather than your words. Okay, now coming to next is, yes, now this is basically the body language which has been addressed with some technical terms. This also is a part of your question paper. So body postures we call it as kinesthetic, eye language we call it as oculus, touch is called as haptis, personal space is called as proxemics. Like for example, the distance between two people when they speak, okay, if the distance has to be, the distance has to be a balance. Too much closeness will make a person awkward to speak. Too much distance may make a person uncomfortable because he is out of reach. Paralanguage, that is vocalus, time element, that is chromics, physical environment, and personal appearance. Okay. Now, the same thing I have given in the form of what? In the form of another slide, one after the other. So you can just remember these terms very well. Okay. Now, synchronous and asynchronous type of communication. Synchronous, which is live. So if I'm taking a live class on YouTube, okay, or any other mode of channel, so that becomes, the live where the participants are connected to the educator on the spot or at the same time. But if this is a recorded class, so this you can come back to this class anytime, any moment, wherever you are free and you can continue your learning. That is called as acronius. It is also a part of your previous year question paper. Okay. Barriers of communication. So let's have a look at the barriers. Psychological barriers, where we talk about anger, fear, jealousy, shyness, close-mindedness. Your mental state is not allowing you, to accept something. So that becomes a barrier, and it is indicated as what? A barrier to communication, which will definitely not help to, which will not allow you to grow, develop. Okay, like for example, change is an important part of life, but you have always this preconceived notion, what people will say. How can I do this? How can I, how can I go ahead? How can I change my style of dressing? How can I change my way of speaking? So all these are your they are related to your brain, the psychology of your way of thinking, and that is it is called a psychological barrier. Barrier is something, an obstacle which will not allow you to proceed further. Emotional barrier, where you are not able to hold yourself, like for example, see, we need to have a balance. Like for example, as a teacher, let us take an example. As a teacher, you cannot just go a flow with the students' emotions. No doubt, everyone has a part of struggle, phase of struggle. But yes, you need to teach your students, instead of showing them the sympathy, you need to understand the situation, and you need to motivate or encourage the students to stand strong even in that situation. So if the emotional barrier is, if emotionally you are weak as a teacher, it will be very difficult for you to convince a student how to fight the situation. Okay. Then barriers, cultural barriers, yes, the cultural norms, the way, the habit, all those things. Okay, it really matters, and definitely the culture, everything is fine. Like for example, expatriates and expatriates, people who go out of the country and work, and people who from the other country come into the country and work. Everything is fine, the salary is good, everything, but they are not able to adapt the culture. They are not able to, stay away from the family. So unless and until you are not fitting in the culture, it means you will not be a part of that society, or that particular locality. So yes, it is again a big challenge or an obstacle. Physical barriers, like for example, let us say that right now, if my voice is not clear to you, maybe last few days there was some amount of throat itching was there, because of which the sound was not clear. So yes, it irritates many times. Even students have wrote that the voice is not clear. It's not about any technical error. It is physical barrier which is not allowing me to raise my voice, or clarity of voice to be delivered. Then we have barriers with respect to attitude. Yes, a wrong attitude can definitely mess up with everything. Okay, it may be in the form of your aggression, your emotions, your distrust. Okay, and your criticisms, your stereotyping. So anything where where you are having issues with the attitude, definitely will not help in a good teamwork, or maybe not a positive teamwork. Perception barriers, what you perceive, what you think, that can also result to a barrier. Maybe always you are, you come up with a negative answers, you're never positive, or you are always neutral. That can lead to an obstacle. Psychological barriers, we have started yesterday learning disabilities. So that disabilities are nothing but, it is, sorry, those disabilities are nothing but physiological barriers. Okay. And hierarchical barriers, that is with reference to your reporting authority. It can be in the family also, in the form of informal institution, or in the form of offices also, a formal institution. Like for example, there has to be a sequence. You have to report to your boss. Your boss will report to the senior boss. So there has to be a hierarchy to be followed. If not, it can lead to an obstacle. Right. Now, coming to the next is push and pull communication. Yes, along with push and pull, I have also taken interactive communication. So interactive is actually most effective communication, where two or more people in real, communicate in real time, and it is a face-to-face communication. A push communication is basically, it's not a face-to-face communication. It's, the project manager sends the information to the recipient with no expectation of receiving back an immediate feedback or response. Okay, it is okay, just it is delivered. There is no hopes for coming back or response or a feedback. Full communication, where the communication is okay, which is shared, that definitely the recipients are responsible to use the information placed at that location. It means that it is a response, that yes, it will be shared, it will be delivered, and there will be a response. So communication methods, as I said, interactive, as face-to-face, push,
can reach a large audience, but there is, the comprehension is assertive. It's not certain. Pull, suitable for data that supports, a specific task, a specific work. Then some examples I've written: push communication in the form of lectures, emails, voicemails, or, just the introductory mails, contracts, documents. Whereas pull communication, it is basically what websites, wikis, okay, Google Docs, bulletins, dashboards, webinars, and social media. These are the examples of pull communication. So why I have written these examples, sometimes you may get a question in the form of examples. Okay, so it is very important that you should know clear-cut the examples also for push and pull. Okay, now coming to the last part. Actually, this, see, nowadays, there are questions on models of communication. So what I have done is I've listed all the models of communication. Basically, there are three main headings, that is linear models, interactive model, and transactional model. So under linear, you have these four models, that is Aristotle model, Lasswell's model, Shannon-Weaver model, and Berlow's model. I have written the year also, sorry, so that you, in case if you get with the years, you should be able to rectify them, or, you should be able to recognize them. So basically, linear model is one-way model, okay, where feedback is not present. Okay, it is a primary communication model. The sender communicates with the receiver without receiving the feedback. So it's like one-way process of communication. So now in linear model, the first we will go with linear model. Okay, so linear Aristotle model, where we have five main components: speaker, speech, occasion, audience, effect. So basically, this type of communication is a golden rule to excel in public speaking, seminars, lectures. This is very important. These examples, see, they can frame the questions only based on examples. There is nothing as such in this model. Why this model is used, or it is used basically where, as a golden rule to excel in public communication or seminars or lectures, where the sender makes its points very clear, leaves an impressing impression, and he does not wait for, any response. Okay. Then when we come to Lasswell's communication model, so Lasswell communication model has another 5 components. Now see, these examples and these components also you have to remember. They can give you, ask the following question also with components. Because if you see in Lasswell's model, communicator, who says what, that is a message, in which channel, that is a medium, to whom, that is a receiver, with what effect, that is effect, the impact or consequence of the message. So these are what? These are the components of Lasswell's communication model. Next, coming to your next model is Shannon and Weaver's model. So under this model, if you see, again, the components are the source, that is the sender, transmitter, that is encoding, okay, channel, that is the noise, reception, that is the decoder, designation, that is the receiver. Sorry, destination, that is the receiver. I'm extremely sorry. So here, basically, in this model, the model originates from the person who gets, the thoughts or has the information. So one who has the thoughts or the information, the message originates, and that is how the message is, starts the journey. And yes, the information gets transmitted from the mouth to, that is from the brain to mouth. That is, the thought comes in brain. It is transferred to mouth and comes out as a signal which reaches the recipient after joining the hands with several noises and other disturbance. The recipient then further passes on the message to its final destination or the minds of other individuals. So small sentences are also important. Like, for example, brain to mouth. See, you have just read it and you just forgot it. So when you're revising the concepts, these important sentences are a must. Okay. Then coming to Berlow's model. Berlow's model is about, again, another component, that is the source, message, channel, receiver, along with encoding and decoding. Now, how does this differs from the Aristotle model? So Berlow's model considers the emotional aspect. What is the emotional aspect? The skills, the attitude, the knowledge, the social system, and the culture. So this emotional aspect is what a part of what Berlow's model. Okay, so what does S stands for? It stands for send. So now if you get S stands for what in the Berlow's model? Okay, you have odd man out. So you will definitely write sender. It stands for source, not sender. Okay, M stands for message, C stands for channel, and then we have the receiver. Okay. Then I have made a summarized table. This summarized table is basically to help you out what are the models and what are the important points which you need to remember. So like for example, in Aristotle model, it is the speaker, speech, occasion, target, audience, okay? Whereas you have in Laswell's model talks about the five components, that is who, WH, who, said what, okay, through which channel, to whom. These are all components which are a part of what? Which are a part of your Laswell's model. Shannon and Weaver model, noise, okay, is a distraction which was introduced in Shannon model. Berlow's model talks about emotional impact. So these will give you what? This will give you an impact of what? Impact of all the models which come under linear. So you may also have a question, linear model, which model comes? So under linear, you know, it is Aristotle, it is Laswell's, it is Shannon Weaver, it is Berlow's. Okay, this is one. Now, coming to interactive model, under interactive, you have Osgood Charman model and Wesley and MacLean model of communication. So for this also, first let's understand what is interactive model. So it is a two-way model where feedback is not simultaneous, but it is there. Its presence is there. It may be slow. It is, you know, it is indirect, but it feedback is there. Okay. So it is basically the communication can be linear if the sender does not. As I said, it is not simultaneous. So if it is not received, it will turn to linear. Otherwise, it is it is called as interactive model. So now under interactive model, as I said, there are two models, that is Osgood and Wesley. So let's see Osgood model. So Charles Osgood model is basically different because it does not allow the conventional pattern of communication from source to channel. So here the communication is described as dynamic. Now see, this is only the model where the communication is considered as a dynamic, not traditional. It's a non-conventional model, a modern way of communication. Okay. So it emphasizes that each participant in the communication process sends as well as receives message, and such as encoding, decoding, and interprets the message. Okay. Thus, according to him, communication is a dynamic process which there is an interactive relationship between the source and the receiver, where the person is a source at one moment and a receiver in the next. Okay, so it means, you know, it is not having a traditional. Here, the same person can play the role of sender as well as receiver also. And this is truly interpersonal communication. So like, for example, the person who's communicating, when he receives a feedback, he becomes what? He is a type of what? He is a type of receiver. Okay. So it is one of the dynamic form of communication model. Then we have Wesley's and MacLean's model of communication, which the model considers a strong relation between the signals from the surrounding. So according to this model, the process of communication begins with receiving the message rather than sending. So like, for example, it is very, very important, keep these two paragraphs in mind very well. So in this model, it is not necessary that the signals are coming from the surroundings, are intentionally sent to the process to start the communication. Sometimes events might accidentally occur or can be accidentally received. So like, for example, these signals can be received anytime and the communication can begin. So that can be one of the loophole. But yes, as I said, it is basically with the signals received, the communication starts. So you can conclude this model in such a way that communication supports the initiation. The moment the signal comes, it is an initiation and the process starts. Okay. Then next we have is the summarization. So Osgood's model, as I said, it is one of the dynamic real-time real-time information is given or it is conveyed. And Wesley's and MacLean model, as I said, it is, you know, with the help of what? Signal. That is, maybe the signal is influenced by environmental factor, cultural factor, or personal factor. Okay. And then we have last is transactional model. So transactional model, where we have White model, helical model, and Bradloom's model. Then there is last type, which is not, it is a separate type, but I will take this Newcomb's model also. It is there because all the models now we have completed. So you should be very confident when the question comes on model. So basically, what is transactional model? First, let's see that. So transactional model is a two-process communication with immediate feedback. In linear, there is no feedback. In interactive model, the feedback is there, but the speed is very slow. And in the transaction, it is very immediate. Okay, very fast, as I said, very direct, and it is instant feedback, you can see. Okay, so now let's see which model comes. The first model is White's model. So yes, under the White's model, as I said, the feedback, okay, is a part of communication process. It is cyclic. Okay, it starts with the thinking process, symbolizing, expressing, transmitting, receiving. Okay, that is the receiver over here. Here is the sender, here is the receiver. Decoding, feedbacking, monitoring. So this is how you should remember this White's model. They can even ask you the steps of, a White model. Whereas in the balanced transactional model, it is a multi-layered feedback system. There is a continuous process where the sender and receiver interchange, their messages. The messages passing takes place, a constant feedback. Okay, a feedback is a feedback for one is the message for another. As I said, that is sender and receiver. So for one, it is a feedback. For other, it will be a message. Okay. And then finally comes as the helical model. This is a very different model. Like Osgood model is dynamic. So this type of model is also, it is something which has evolved from the birth. Okay. So from the birth of a person till date. So like whatever you communicate, definitely your way of communicating will be different. Okay. But your communication evolves, with a pattern. So when you are a child, after some years, the maturity comes, after certain years, your continuation growth happens, and then till date, how you communicate. As I said, there will be definitely modification, but the communication is constant. Okay. And then comes your last model, which is a separate model. That is, sorry, before that, I have given a summarization. White model, as I said, feedback plays an important role. There is a process. There are stages, that is thinking. Okay. From it starts with thinking. The 8 stages are symbolized over here. Helical model, as I said, it's very complex, and there are stages through which the communication evolved. Transactional model of balloons, it is role of private and public cues that impact the message. And the last one, a complete different type of model, that is Newcomb's model. So under Newcomb's model, it is basically, it is completely different model. Let's see what exactly. It is triangular in shape. First of all, see, all the models are cyclic. Here it is triangular. Okay, it is interaction with the society. Okay, it maintains the balance between the social system and a person. So here, like, they have given an excellent example to explain this model. A is the role of the government. Okay, B and X. Okay, so basically B is considered as the public over here, and X is considered as a war zone. So suppose a country where there is, the civilians, it is considered as civilians. So whatever happens in the war zone, the government should be aware of it, and government should actually give, there has to be give and take between the civilians and the government, just to make sure that the war zone is, maintaining their balance, and they are able to, stand strong in order to protect the country as well as the government. That is civilians and government. And hence this message, whatever takes place over here, it is in the form of what? It is in the form of your a Newcomb model. So this model assumes the significance in the light of, people's increasing need for information. Democracy, okay, is required where the adequate amount of information is given, so that accordingly the people or the connected people can be reacting. Okay. So yes, this is all we have revised in communication unit. As I said, this series of units are students who are appearing for phase 1, students who are appearing for phase 2, at least this revisions will help you to give, okay, these are the topics which you have not touched, these are the untouched topics, these are the topics where you're perfect with. So it will give you a clear direction that what needs to be revised, what needs to be done, and what needs to be winded up. Okay. Thank you very much, and see you tomorrow with a next set of unit. Tomorrow we'll be doing with research aptitude. Okay. Thank you, everyone.